Hi guys, welcome back to the channel for another video. A potentially dicey video. Is she going to body shame someone? Is this a skinny shaming video? No, it's not. So Emily Ratajkowski, you know what? I'm gonna let Google take that one because I'm Australian and unable to pronounce anything correctly.
Emily Ratajkowski.
Emily is a model from America. I know of her because she was arrested in the Kavanaugh hearing protests, which is awesome. I know that she is a feminist. I know she was in that awful Robin Thicke film clip, which kind of had rapey undertones. And I also know that she inhabits a body type which less than 4% of the female population have naturally. So she was photographed here in Sydney a couple of days ago on Bondi Beach wearing a smaller than average bikini, and this alone has warranted days and days and days and days of media coverage of Emily in this bikini at the beach holding a beer. And I was contacted by a Sydney newspaper, as happens occasionally, as the ambassador for the Butterfly Foundation, and they basically wanted to get a comment from me about what I thought of the bikini, what I thought of Emily wearing the bikini, what I think that means for society, what I think that means for women, whether or not I thought it was modest or immodest. And my answer to them was, who cares? Now, I understand that people do care. These stories get lots of clicks. These stories end up being top of the news page because they get clicked on, because they get commented on. My suggestion is don't go and read the comments on that particular article, especially if you're Emily, because it's a lot of guys. And I bet you can imagine what they're saying. And my response to the journalist who is doing her job, who's been asked to cover this because everybody's covering it obviously, was to say women should be able to wear what they want to wear to the beach without scrutiny. And the real question is, where does this scrutiny come from? Why are we so interested? And you can say, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not indicative of, you know, how women are represented in all media. It's not indicative of any kind of gap in genders of how men are portrayed versus how women are portrayed. Well, that's not totally true. There is a discrepancy not only in the visibility of women in media, but the nature of the stories that women are represented in, the way that we're portrayed, the way that we are spoken about, the way that we are highlighted. And a huge volume of stories which are covered around women are sexualized, are based on frivolous sort of surface topics like physical appearance, from tabloids right through to mainstream, fairly respectable journalism. Even though the respectable outlets aren't necessarily showing page 3 models, they aren't essentially keeping the balance of who they're covering, what stories they're covering, in terms of who is being profiled. The Global Media Monitoring Project in 2015 found that women make up only 24% of the persons heard, read about, or seen in newspaper, television, and radio news, exactly as they did in 2010, which shows that those statistics are not changing. That's only 24% of what makes up what we see in the news, what we hear on the radio, what we see on TV. And within that quarter, think about all the ways in which you see women being represented in the media. How much of it is about female politicians or women in the energy sector or the tech sector? How much of it is about female entrepreneurs or about female academics? It's not high, my friends. There is a huge amount of media which is covering women in a very, very two-dimensional, appearance-focused, aesthetic-focused sense. And within that is a huge amount of scrutiny and ridicule and judgment. There were even polls being taken about whether or not Emily should have been wearing this to the beach, and by extension, whether other women should be wearing this to the beach. It's hard to imagine us holding a referendum on what a man should or should not be wearing anywhere. This is a direct quote from that report. The gender gap is narrowest in stories on science and health, the major topic of lowest importance on the news agenda, occupying only 8% of the overall news space. Women make up 35% of the people in news under this topic, in contrast to only 16% in political news stories. The gap is widest in news about politics and government, in which women are only 16% of the people in the stories. In fact, women are 3 percentage points less visible in political news now than 5 years ago. In other words, we can't be what we can't see. If we're constantly having the message reinforced that our value is in our appearance, is in what we wear to the beach, and beyond that is up for debate about whether or not we should be wearing that to the beach, then we're absolutely diminishing the way in which we view women, the way in which women are treated, not just in media, but by extension, in day-to-day life.
You all saw the photo from the weekend of Hillary looking so haggard and looking like 92 years old. Breast implants, did you have them or not?
If you waterboarded Nancy Pelosi, she wouldn't admit to plastic surgery.
The fact that media are so derogatory to the most powerful women in the country, then what does it say about media's ability to take any woman in America seriously?
I think one of the best examples of this was an article which I was so irritated by that I tweeted about it. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know this happens from time to time, and it's usually from our friends over at the Daily Mail. Something I get my clients to do is to actually pull stories from the Daily Mail for a week, one every day, that they would categorize as disordered. Something that I might ask you guys to do this week. Go over to the Daily Mail and I want you to pick out the most disordered headline you can find and pop it in the comments below. When Meghan Markle was out here for the royal tour with Prince Harry, the coverage of her wardrobe, of her change of physical appearance because she is pregnant, was absolutely endless. And it was something that I didn't even realize, because we become so attuned to this normal, that this is how women should be covered, that this limited small percentage of what we find interesting about women, or what we think that people want to read about women or know about women, it starts to feel like something we wouldn't question because it's so normal. But this was so outside normal that it helped me to pull back into focus how relentlessly Meghan had been covered for her aesthetics, her appearance, her wardrobe. And if we were to compare that to the actual substantive articles that were covered about her, I'd say we'd be pretty much in a deficit in the latter rather than the former. So this was an actual headline from the Daily Mail. Time to put your feet up, Meghan. How the pregnant Duchess's love of heels has left her with a bunion. And does a mysterious scar reveal that she's already had one removed? And these are the actual bullet points from underneath. Meghan appears to have bunion on her right foot, possibly from wearing heels. When are we launching the investigation? I will personally fund it. This is fascinating stuff. Also seems to have scar, which could be from bunion removal surgery. Love hearing about an alleged bunion. Meghan has worn heels with 34 of her 41 outfits during royal tour. Like I said, I think that exemplifies what it is that is wrong with how women are portrayed in media, and the fact that I consider myself fairly aware of what I see in media and the ways in which I see women being portrayed, as I said, in this really narrow, marginalized, simplistic, two-dimensional sense. But this even snapped me into focus that there is someone out there counting her outfits and how many times she's worn heels, rather than, as I said, the substantive things that she did while she was in the country. So the media is not going to change overnight. That's not realistic. But what we can do is we can be more discerning and more analytical with what we do consume, whether that's on our social media or in general media, whether or not it's with what we choose to click on, the products that we choose to buy, who we choose to promote and support, the stories that we seek out, the things that we take interest in. Go and find women who are in the field that you're interested in, doing really awesome stuff. If you're in a position to, profile them, interview them, support them, get their voices out there. That's why I love things like YouTube, and to the extent that social media is a positive thing, I love that we can create these spaces and platforms for ourselves and for our voices where male-dominated media doesn't necessarily make the space for us. If we look at media ownership, it's predominantly owned by men. When we look at who runs those companies, it's predominantly men. Am I demonizing men? Am I hating on men? Absolutely not. I just think that we look to tell the stories that we identify with. And given there's so many men who dominate those positions of power, what they're going to dictate in terms of what is shown in their newspapers or on their websites or in their newsrooms is usually going to reflect how they see themselves in the world. Where space is not made for you, you must make your own space. But on the topic of Emily, her bikini, and most importantly, the media's choice to cover it as if a new iPhone just launched, my answer is, who cares? What else have you guys got? Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Hit me with those disordered headlines in the comments below. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter under What Mia Did Next. I'll see you guys in a couple of days with another video. Much love. Take care. Bye guys.